Welcome to the online series of creative conversations produced by Arts Nexus, featuring practicing arts makers from across far north Queensland, a place to explore the business of arts, the ups, the downs, where we get our inspiration from and what our aspirations are.
Thank you everyone for joining us here today for yet another creative conversation with Arts Nexus. This is very exciting, our new Zoom meetups. It means we can meet with people anywhere in the world, and anyone from anywhere in the world can find out a little bit more about us. And we have Paul Chantrill with us today. And Paul, where are you?
I'm in a place called Makati, which is in Manila in the Philippines.
Fantastic. So really thank you for taking a little bit of time in your holiday break to talk with us. There's a number of things that we can talk to you about, but I want to just find out first about your current arts practice and what you're doing at the moment, and then we're going to wind back the clock and find out a bit more about where you came from to get to where you are today.
Well, I spent a lot of time writing music, and I make advantage of play different instruments as well as combine that with the new technology of sound samples. And so you can use computers to actually produce just about any imaginable instrument on earth, and include that in terms of a kind of a new approach to making music, which is like digital and analog, bringing it all together. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I also like performing, and the main person I work with is Katerina, who's part of this session as well. And we focus on doing sort of a crossover of classical and world music, particularly Greek music, but it has a a sort of a broader focus on music from Spain and other parts of Europe, as we sometimes do music from all over the world as well, just in terms of what we enjoy. And I'm also teaching as well, so I teach classical guitar, which is my main instrument. So it's reasonably varied in terms of doing a whole variety of different musical activities, which is what you need to be able to do to survive in the modern world.
Where did this all begin for you? Way back in the very beginning, when you were probably at school. When did you first become exposed to the art?
Well, it was really in primary school, and one of my best friends, piano, he was actually really good. He used to play a honky-tonk 12-bar style piano, and I used to go over to his place and watch him, and like eight-year-old kids, just sort of saying, we're really enjoying it. So I asked my parents if I could get a keyboard as well, and they said yes, much to my delight. And then I think it was for my 8th or 9th birthday party, had a jam session with all the local primary school kids that were into music, and we tried to play as a band, and it was kind of like, very aspirational at that stage, but it was getting the energy and the vibe at that very early age, was really, really exciting. When I started high school, it was at the same school that my mother was a teacher, and we did some kind of aptitude test in the music class, and the high school music teacher rushed off to say to my mother, "Hey, your son's a bit of a musical guru. He's got at the highest score in terms of music ear or oral test or something like that of anyone up to that she'd met up to year 10. So it was kind of like I got dobbed in from a very early age, and like I had a bit of musical potential. So my mum was really supportive. That's the main thing in terms of investing in lessons and instruments, and helping me spend time to develop the music right throughout my school years. Yes, that was really fortunate to have a supportive mother. Yeah, I guess there's a sort of a democracy in music where people of all sorts of levels of ability and interest can actually get in and participate in some way.
Yeah, great. Well, precisely, and that's the thing. I think so. That's a great foundation that you had, a supportive parent that allowed you that time and space, and probably a huge investment to make sure that you had the lessons and everything. So you would have then progressed from school, as many people get to experience music, but once they start getting into their 20s, how did you then continue to enjoy music? Were you able to start earning money with it, or was it always for pleasure at that time? How did you get to the point that you started to become a professional?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I was a university student through most of my 20s, which means that I didn't have the the demands of having to go to an office job every day. So being a university student gave me lots of time. And I actually got a PhD scholarship, a Commonwealth scholarship to study. Also, the university environment, there were always things happening, like the popular theatre troupe coming to do performances at Griffith University campus, or this is in Brisbane, or there was joint efforts, Triple Z in Brisbane putting on bands and shows and music groups. Then, you know, there was a Friday night Casbah at the university where everyone had to go and opportunity to play music. So I was able to form part of some fairly significant musical things right from those early days. The most memorable one was with a woman called Leah Cottrell, who I saw as an actor with popular theatre troupe at the university, but she had to sing as part of a role. And I thought, oh, you got a good voice. And so I approached her afterwards and said, would she be interested in singing? And she said, well, that's exactly what I was wanting to do because I really love singing. She went on to become one of the most successful jazz singers in Brisbane through the 1990s and 2000s, and established this thing that's continued throughout my life of being primarily an accompanist and arranger of music, but wanting to work with singers. And so I've worked with lots and lots of different singers over the years. And Katerina is the most recent one, and that's probably the longest term one. But right from those early university days is forming musical partnerships and getting out there and giving things a go. You know, like there was women in voice things. I met another classical singer from the conservatorium in Brisbane, and you know, we did similar things in terms of getting out there and, you know, singing, you know, there's women in voice feature nights in Brisbane and all sorts of different opportunities that were happening throughout that period of time. The other major development that happened with my music, I've never really aspired to be a singer-songwriter, you know, like, you know, sitting in the corner of a cafe and, you know, singing pretty folk songs is not really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that more features like my technique and ability as a musician. It's better to combine that with a separate singer rather than try to sort of dumb it down, if you like, by trying to do both at once. And I think that you get a much richer thing. Yeah. The other thing that I did, because I studied classical guitar and right through my 20s while I was still at university, lecturer for the conservatorium, a fellow called Ron Butler. And he introduced me with other leading guitarists in Brisbane, and we formed duets. And so I used to spend literally just about every weekend to develop a lot of classical guitar. Eventually, because the guy that I played with, College of Advanced Education, they had a music. I started singing in choirs from in my 20s, and I actually came to really love it. And when I left Brisbane to go and work in the University of New England in Armidale, I joined a very, very specialised choir called Fiori Musicale, and got no other musicians to play with there. So choral music and voice became a really, really big part of my music career from that stage on. And so, you know, 7 years was with the Chamber Choir, and back and joined the Brisbane Queensland Choir, and then went to New Zealand and sung with International Choir, and also with a Hamilton City Civic Choir as well. And you know, some of the biggest highlights in my music have been singing in choral groups, you know, with symphony orchestras, just the most stunning and beautiful, rich vocal arrangements, and very inspiring.
So how do you go from having all of that amazing experience, especially, you know, musical experience, to find yourself in a regional context? How did you get here?
Yeah, well, it's really strange because I was literally in New Zealand and doing some beautiful concert. We did Bach's Passion. You know, I don't know if you're aware of, like, but Bach wrote some really fantastic religious music, and the Passions are written for Easter, and there's St. Matthew's and the St. John's, and I've performed both of them. But to me, that was a really, really incredibly beautiful concert and very, very moving. And not long after that, because of family reasons, I want to come back and live in Australia. And the job that I found was back where I have family connections and roots in North Queensland. And, you know, my great grandparents settled at Miller on the Atherton tableland. My mum was wanting to retire up there. My sisters and aunts and all my relatives there. So it was an opportunity to come back home. And, you know, I kind of, you know, sometimes you have to make the choice between family, life, career, music, which one comes first? Well, at that time, it was really about family with my young daughter, bringing her up by myself and my mum getting sick. So I came home for family reasons. And, you know, it's like throwing the dice and seeing what happened to music. You know, I didn't know what happened when I got there, but, you know, you make those changes. I certainly miss singing in those big choral groups, which you can't do in Cairns. It's been really, really hard to make those kind of connections here. It's just more. But the other connections come up, you know. There's Jacqueline Larson, who runs the song. All right, I met her to do a lot of together at the Trade Avenue, you know, lots of gigs around Cairns, and that was nice because there was a certain commitment to doing harmony and pretty music, you know. And then I met Katerina after a while. Yeah, and so, you know, there were different opportunities to do new things, but particularly with Katerina, because we kind of had that real similar background, really similar interests in terms of the style and approach to music. It's really hard to find classical musicians in Cairns that actually want to go off and do things. You know, a lot of people play at home or don't have huge aspirations. So that's really rare. And that's why we've been lucky to meet, because, you know, that whole program has been about taking that music away. You know, we went to Greece, we've been to Brisbane, it looks like we'll be going to Melbourne, Sydney and other places with the music soon as well. So, and that's nice for me because that gets me out of being locked in Cairns. You know, I honestly have to say that Cairns is a bit of I've experienced as much more of a cultural wasteland than other places I've lived in. And thank God Arts Nexus there actually addressed that. But
Yeah.
But you know, there was a really thriving music community in Armidale, small, much place in Cairns, but it was so much more vibrant and energy around music in Armidale, New South Wales, than what Cairns has, you know. So yeah, it's been a bit of a frustration, but the other thing too is like you just do things more for yourself as well. So that's why I spend a lot of time at home writing my own music or recording other people or trying to be creative with music. Yeah.
What do you put it down to, Paul, in terms of, because as a membership-based organisation, we know there's a lot of creatives in not just Cairns but the region. So what is it, do you think, that impacts on the opportunities? What is that?
It's interesting because I was talking to some other more experienced, or, you know, people have been around in Cairns longer than me, and they go back to earlier times and say, you know, 15, 20 years ago, and say it was much more active and there was a lot more support. And I think part of that probably comes from the private hotels and venues were much more receptive and supportive of music, and also the council. I think there was a lot more energy and opportunities being created musically in Cairns 15 or 20 years ago, but now it's sort of come down to more like a commitment to building like big performing arts centres or major galleries or big infrastructure. Everyone seems preoccupied with big infrastructure these days, and people are actually forgetting about the need, opportunity, and the benefits of actually getting in behind the grassroots and actually building a music culture. So that's why I think Cairns lost that. And maybe other cities too have as well, because of the digital age. There's so much more that people experience and do at home or through the internet or on YouTube or social media, that, you know, that the spirit of people to get out and engage and connect musically is, you know, it's much less now than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. So then what would you say, you were talking before, and we're going to have a little quick look at the video of you and Katerina, so people can get a little taste of that. So you're talking about the time that you get to spend with somebody here in the region, when you're based in a region. Do you think that's the key difference for you, being in a regional setting rather than the biggest cities, or is there something else?
Well, I think I think in the regional setting, you tend to specialize and you develop closer one-to-one relationships with people, whereas when you're in the city, you might be much more broadly based in terms of being able to engage or work through, different opportunities or different points of connection. So, like, what that would mean, for example, is that Katerina and I have stuck together for something like 9 years playing together. Whereas if you're in a big city, you might kind of be moving in and out and playing with, it's like, you kind of develop that closer one-to-one sort of connection in a small place, and you get to know people, well, and the ones that are, you've got a similar connection or interest with, then, you tend to concentrate and stick together. That's the way I've experienced it. And that's like another guy, Bernd, who's a German gentleman that's a very nice singer. It's the same thing. We just really enjoyed singing together and do it together, because it's really hard to find other people that you can connect with on that same level. That's the singing, like, early music and madrigals from the 15th and 16th century. There's not stacks of people in Cairns that are interested in doing that. So when you find someone else that is interested in it, you tend to sort of gravitate together and stick together.
Yeah, right. So,
I did meet just the last couple of weeks.
Hang on, wait a minute. What happened there? We've lost you. Hang on.
Sorry, you said something. Yeah, still.
You go.
I'm here.
Yep. Yeah. What happened? You met somebody a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I met a guy a few weeks ago who's a percussionist, and he was telling me about his life story, coming from France and Italy and having a background in one of the northern African countries as well. He plays in a salsa band, but he's had this same life journey of having a rich and diverse musical background, but ending up in Cairns and wondering why. And we met for the first time about a month ago, and it was a bit like, wow, this was a real magical moment, because here's the possibility of connecting with someone that's got a real similar passion and taste in music. And somehow it's like you'd found another soul on a lost island somewhere, and I'm sort of hopeful and optimistic that we might be able to do some things together into the future. So so that's the thing, is you find these really rare moments where you make this really important connection, and maybe it can lead to something quite special, and that's what you live for that, making those connections where you can do something really, really special.
Talking about something special.
I've been a singer for the majority of my life. Always loved to sing. I'm a mezzo-soprano, trained at the Queensland Conservatorium. I'm Katerina Manolatos, and together with Paul Chantrill, we make up a musical odyssey. So we specialise in world music, and at the moment we've been specialising in Greek music and Greek art song particularly. So music that's been based on poetry by different poets around the world, and music by Mikis Theodorakis and Manos Hatzidakis. So I was really lucky to meet Paul Chantrill back in Cairns about 8 years now, and he's a very accomplished guitarist. What drew me mostly towards him was his love of all styles of music and his flexibility in music. What's been really special about our combination is that the music that's written by Manos Hatzidakis and Mikis Theodorakis was not written for guitar originally. So it's been written for bouzouki and piano and Greek bands. And Paul has been able to put his own spin on the music and create these beautiful arrangements for guitar and voice that are simple but effective and really show the character and the beauty of the Greek music.
So Katerina, can I just ask you about the moment when you did meet up with Paul and someone of that calibre?
Paul just mentioned you do feel like you've met, a soul on an island, because you suddenly go, oh my God, this person's amazing, and you gravitate towards them. So it was like that when I met Paul. I was like, oh my gosh, he's a guitarist, and he loves classical music and world music, and we just hit it off. So it was a really, life-changing moment for both of us.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because it must be a challenge being based in a region with such a specific genre of music. You particularly as a mezzo-soprano, and well, I know that you do a lot of teaching and you love to work with young people and that, but the actual heartfelt music, and do you find many places to play here in the region, or do you find you have to travel to do that?
There are places, but you have to find them, and sometimes you find the perfect place and it's just not available to be used to perform in. So it is very challenging, and Paul and I are organising a couple of concerts in the next couple of months at the Kauai Beach Resort, and we had to work really hard to get that happening again for us. So you do lose momentum because of those obstacles that you come up against. So yes, it is much easier for us to perform in different areas, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, not only because of those venues available, but because of the larger population and the population that is Greek heritage, that might be interested in our music, but not only just Greek music, but world music. So, there's challenges, but we do have a base of people who are interested in our music. We just have to make sure that they're available when our concerts are on and there's not something else on at the time, which has happened for us before. So,
Yeah, it is very hard to pluck a date out of the air and get it right. So I can only imagine finding someone as not just like-minded, but equal in talent. So, yeah, awesome. Well, and I know you've made a bit of a life for yourself here, so that's fantastic as well to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katerina. So, Paul. So, yes, we have a question from Rhonda.
Hi, Paul. I was just wondering if you are performing in the Philippines. Or you just...
No, I'm just here on holidays. Yeah. It's interesting though, because when Jacqueline Larson, and when we did a gig at Palm Cove once, this really rich Filipino person came up and said, "I love you guys. I'm going to fly you to Manila to do a concert." And I think, my God, that's a big gesture. But it never happened. But there's always these things that possibly happen. I was a bit surprised that somebody wanted to fly us to Manila to do a concert.
Did you travel with your guitar?
No. I deliberately only traveled with a little small bag. When I have traveled, I've written music on iPads and laptops. No keyboard even. There's ways of doing it. Yeah, it's amazing. You can actually compose and play music on these things.
Yeah.
So I don't need a guitar because I have my iPad, and iPads, I can do so much stuff. The amount of synthesized and recording software that you can use on iPad's amazing. Yeah.
So Jadette, you've got a question that's interesting.
My question, Paul, was how have you balanced a musical career and holding down a 9-to-5 job at the same time over the years?
Yeah, that's been really, really challenging. Sometimes it sort of feels like, I'm working a 12 or 14-hour day, because I'm trying to do my music when I get home after work, and I'm not sure if it makes me tired or not, because I really enjoy doing the music, but I'm definitely trying to do less in terms of 9 to 5. Like I'm now doing 3 or 4 days a week. I've been watching this TV series on the Medicis from Italy, which were Florence city state, and they would actually consecrate us. And that's what I need today, is a new Medici family to it. That's my dream.
So talking of dreams, what does the future hold for the musician Paul? What are your aspirations with your musical careers? Because you sound like you've actually achieved a lot and probably hit some of those goals that you wanted. And certainly with the international travel with Katerina and some of the other ones.
Well, I've invested a lot in sound production, so I really do like recording and arranging music. One of the things I possibly could have suggested you could have played is a YouTube video of the woman who got it, and she asked me to record her and arrange music to play as a gift of her to her father for the, you know, passing over of what do they do in terms of this Serbian culture. And so she asked me to do that, and it was a really, really beautiful thing to see that moment. And she, you know, had that giving of the song to her father, and they danced together to it. So yeah, it was nice to be behind that, you know, in terms of, it was a moving thing. Yeah. So it was nice to be part of the production side of that in terms of producing something. Yeah. I guess it's like, you know, how some movie actors end up being directors later in their career. Well, that's something I think is equivalent with music, like producing and arranging and recording other people now as well. Katerina and I do an album soon, and I will produce that and record that. And I think I can do it as good as anybody else can. So it's another.
I think so.
My cat speak. And there's another woman that's recording with me, Vivian AC. She's from PNG, and you know, she was trying around different recording cans to do different things, and she said that she wants to come back and record with me because the other recording places, they don't necessarily get it, you know, in terms of the ability to arrange music or to make things come to life in a certain sort of way. So I think there's real advantages in terms of being able to, you know, be able to do that sort of production side of music, but having the knowledge and musicianship to be able to make it sound really, really good from a musical point of view. So yeah, that's something that I'm interested in exploring. And I just want to keep writing beautiful music. You know, I watch some TV series, you know, like Versailles, which is about, you know, the French and Louis XIV. And I listen intently to the soundtracks and think, oh, I can do stuff like that. And I can do that stuff like that completely in a self-contained way at home, you know, with all of the new music technologies. You know, you can do it very, very independently. So I kind of would like to get my stuff out there into circulation, so it could be picked up in movies and soundtracks and things like that. The music I write, yeah.
Soundtracks and movies, there's certainly a big goal, and that's something you could do from a regional base, isn't it, really?
Yeah. You can do it from anywhere. I could do it from this little hotel room in Manila. You know, it's so self-contained. You know, you need sample libraries, you need a MIDI controller, you need a couple of good microphones, and, you know, off you go. You know, a pretty fast computer and storage capacity and fast disks. But yeah, you know, in the digital age, you can do so much and not really need a lot of stuff apart from the sound files. You need them, and they can be expensive too. But, you know, like if you're ever interested, a company called Spitfire Audio, you know, you can buy samples of city orchestras for about £600 a pop. You know, it's just, that's just one of the hundreds of sort of sample libraries they have. But then when you reproduce that through the music, it sounds like you've got a symphony orchestra coming out of your computer, quite literally. And in many ways, it's even more accurate because you don't have the acoustic challenges of being in a big auditorium, you know, in terms of miking up and doing all that sort of stuff, because they've done all that for you. So that's very amazing what you can do with music these days through samples.
So that's an interesting point you've just brought up there. And one way, human orchestras and certainly drummers for a long time have become a little bit obsolete, and yet at the heart of it, you were saying earlier that the collaborations and finding people to work with, you know, at the end of the day, it's still about people, isn't it, and collaboration. So regardless of all the tools you bring into that,
the magic,
the magic there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of just
the connection with people,
connections with people, absolutely. What are your final thoughts in terms of being based in a region, having such a high level of musicality and not necessarily the tribe around you to do that?
Yeah, well, it relates to the question that I just saw pop up on the screen too. How do you get from being in small cans to having your music in a movie or something like that? And you've really got to use relationships with core organizations. One is Q Music. on a statewide basis, Arts Nexus on a local basis, and then APRA, Australian Performing Rights Association, on another level. Because when I've spoken to them to get advice and all the mentoring, they say we can help connect you with the people that are actually interested in buying the sounds for soundtracks. I mean, it's really hard for me to do that as an individual. So you really need to connect with the sponsor and support agencies, you know. And Katerina, you made a comment to me, like even the last couple of days, we've got to get a manager again, because it's so hard for us to do it all ourselves. So you need the relationships, you need the support organisations, and Arts Nexus. So grateful to have Arts Nexus here in Cairns, because that's what helps elevate you. Arts Nexus is really doing that, and your leadership, Melissa, has been fantastic. So yeah, so from your Arts Nexus to your Q Music to APRA, to the Greek cultural societies and organisations, you know, that they're the people in those relationships, are those that want to help. They're really critical in terms of making things really happen.
Yeah. Well, I'd also think the screen ones as well, if you want to get into the movies, the Screen Australia, Screen Queensland, that might be something you can follow up when you return from the Philippines, if you do. That's it. That video that we were looking at before was exceptional. What a beautiful documentation of your work. You must have been very proud as a duo, but also yourself, to be able to have that. I am going to just segue. If you've got to go, I understand people, but Katerina, how did you get that made for you like that?
It was personal connections. It was someone I knew, and it was my sister's boyfriend at the time, and he was in Greece for a holiday, and he's a videographer. He's Blue Room Productions, and it was a last minute thought, because we had him over there to film our concerts, and then he said, why don't I do a little documentary for you? I've got all this footage. And I was like, okay. So we just, yeah, but it was incredible. And I actually watched that to get inspiration when I'm sort of like feeling a bit, you know, ho-hum about everything. I watch it and I go, oh my gosh, I'm reinvigorated. So yeah, it's very powerful for everybody, but for us as well. It's so, yeah, amazing to have.
Oh, I just feel like I can jump into that water. It's just
You do.
the quality.
I love Greece, Katerina. Where was most of the footage?
It was filmed in Ithaki, which is a little island in the Ionian Ocean, next to Kefalonia, and that's where my family are from. So it's a very connected place for us. And every time I went back this year and sung there, and yeah, so you put thumbs up. It's, yeah, awesome.
Well, Rhonda's travelled through that region. Where
you'd know. Beautiful.
you spent some time somewhere I can't pronounce. Where was that?
Scotland. Yeah, I spent Samothrace.
Oh, yes, beautiful. There you go. They're gorgeous places.
Beautiful.
And off the beach track, which we
Yeah.
love. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I got to live at Santorini for some years in my 20s. And you don't forget, do you, those experiences? And I mean, that goes back to what you were saying too before, Paul. And something for you to remember too, Jadess, as you are creating your pathways, you don't forget those early experiences, and they really do influence you your entire life. So it's probably a good thing to remember, is to make sure those memories are good ones, because they don't go away.
Exactly.
They hang with you. So look, I would like to thank you all for coming into our online room, which is amazing, and this will be available on our podcast channel. So please, once you will get the link, I'll send it to you, and please share it with others. We're also looking for more. So if you have ideas, and Katerina, you're on our list to have your very own, because we want to find out how you got to where you are. So thank you again, Paul, for stepping out of from away from the edge of the pool and joining us in this online chat. So thanks again, Paul.
So yeah, back there. Yeah, okay.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Arts Nexus is a capacity building agency working to grow creative people, communities and industries across far north Queensland. Find us at artsnexus.com.au, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter and share your thoughts.